Hi, BookTube. Bill Ruttenberg here with the Ruttenberg Library. Wanted to bring you a video today discussing my April and May reading months. As a lot of you know, and if you don't, now you will know, I'm a teacher. I teach middle school social studies. I got a high school class I also teach, but I'm a history teacher, and in the months of April and May, my 8th grade class, we end up covering the antebellum period and the Civil War. That is how we close out the year. I spend my entire 8th grade year, creating this great nation of the United States. And the problem with our great nation is it's not perfect. And we talk about slavery from its beginnings and just the evilness of the institution and everything bad that went with that. And then I basically build up the country, and then we get towards the middle of the 19th century, and we're ready to end that bad institution. And so we fight a civil war so that we can get rid of the institution of slavery. And it is that time. And so my reading is hopefully going to reflect this. And I have a stack of books, a pile of possibilities of things that I want to get read in the next 2 months. And hopefully these will help me in my classroom as I go along. So let me start off with talking about some stuff dealing with nothing but slavery. Just, the buildup of slavery. And so what I am going to read this year, actually with my 8th graders, I have 2 sections of 8th grade that I teach, and I read this every year. So I read this book twice a year, The Narrative of the Life of Frederick Douglass, an American Slave, and I read this twice a year. I've done it forever. I'm going to definitely read that. I'm 100% sure I'm going to read it twice in the next, here in a couple weeks, actually. Maybe next week, I think, is when we're going to be doing that. But my goal for myself, if you've never read up on Frederick Douglass actually wrote 3 different autobiographies. And I have only read the first one. And so I was lucky enough to get this Library of America copy of Douglass's writings, and I am going to read his second autobiography. And which one is it? Is it My Bondage and My Freedom? I think is the one that's his second one. And I'm looking forward to reading that. So I'm going to try to dig through that. And if you've never, like I said, if you've never read Frederick Douglass gives us arguably our best look at slavery and just how bad slaves had it. It is a masterful piece of writing. And I actually have a review video of Narrative of the Life of Frederick Douglass, an American Slave. I'll put the link to that on this video, if I can remember, down in the description box. Another autobiography that I want to, or a slave narrative that I want to read is Harriet Jacobs' book, Incidents in the Life of a Slave Girl. I've had this for several years now, and I've had it on my TBR, and I just haven't got to it. And so I hope to get to this book right off the get-go, because I want to, I've got the male perspective of things. I want to get the female perspective on stuff. So that is another one that I'm going to read. Let me give you the back cover of this one. It says, the true story of an individual struggle for self-identity, self-preservation, and freedom. Incidents in the life of a slave girl remains among the few extant slave narratives written by a woman. This autobiographical account chronicles the remarkable odyssey of Harriet Jacobs, 1813 to 1897, whose dauntless spirit and faith carried her from a life of servitude and degradation in North Carolina to liberty and reunion with her children in the North. Written and published in 1861 after Jacobs's harrowing escape from a vile and predatory master, the memoir delivers a powerful and unflinching portrayal of the abuses and hypocrisy of the master-slave relationship. Jacob writes frankly of the horrors she suffered as a slave, her eventual escape after several unsuccessful attempts, and her 7 years in self-imposed exile, hiding in a coffin-like garret attached to her grandmother's porch. A rare first-hand account of a courageous woman's determination and endurance. This inspirational story also represents a valuable historical record of the continuing battle for freedom and preservation of family. This comes from Dover Books. This one was printed in, let's see, Mineola, New York. It's printed in 2001. And I actually got this when I was on vacation in Gettysburg. I got it at the gift shop in, let's see, the 8th of June, 2013 is when I got this. And I've been meaning to read it ever since. Haven't got to it. 12 years is long enough. Let's go ahead and get it knocked out. So that will give me the male and female perspectives on slavery. So the next book that I am choosing to read is also on slaves. It's called The Slaves' War by Andrew Ward, The Civil War in the Words of Former Slaves. And so this is, I think, going to be a segue into the Civil War itself. My good friend Patrice Jones had recommended this book to me when we were reading one of our buddy reads. I can't remember which buddy read it was. But she had recommended this and said it was outstanding. And so I am going to try to dig into this and get it going and get myself a better view of what slavery was like. So it says, I'll read the back to you on this one. So it says, in the Slaves' War, acclaimed historian Andrew Ward delivers an unprecedented vision of the nation's bloodiest conflict. Woven together from hundreds of interviews, diaries, letters, and memoirs, here is a groundbreaking and poignant narrative of the Civil War as seen not only from the battlefields, capitals, and camps, but from slave quarters, kitchens, roadsides, and fields as well. Speaking in quintessentially American language, body servants, army cooks, runaways, grave diggers bring the war to life. From the slaves' theories about the causes of the Civil War to their frank assessment of such major figures as Lincoln, Davis, Lee, and Grant, from their searing memories of the carnage of battle to their often startling attitudes toward the masters and liberators alike, and from their initial jubilation of the Yankee invasion of the South to the crushing disappointment of freedom's promise unfulfilled, the Slaves' War is a transformative and engrossing chronicle of America's second revolution. And so really looking forward to this. If anything, just from the recommendation of Patrice. Patrice is a great booktuber and a wonderful buddy reader. She always has really good recommendations. And so I'm really looking forward to partaking in that based solely on her recommendation, because I had not heard of that book before she recommended it. So let's see here. Let's look at the book that I'm currently reading. And I mentioned this, so I won't talk too much about it because I've mentioned it in other videos. But Abraham Lincoln, The Political Life of Abraham Lincoln, All the Powers of Earth, 1856 to 1860 by Sidney Blumenthal. So this is that antebellum period leading right up to the eve of Civil War. So I'm really looking forward to, continuing to dig in this. It's a really good book. Just really enjoying that. The next one I'll bring up, let's do this one. This is an old classic. This is one that I probably should have read long ago. It's by T. Harry Williams. It's Lincoln and His Generals. And I have a couple different copies of this. This is my paperback copy. But this is his phenomenal work on Lincoln and his relationship with his generals. So it says, the fascinating story here told complete for the first time of Lincoln's search for a winning general and of his own emergence as the master strategist and great commander-in-chief. And I think this is going to be good because I want to see what he has to say about, he says he's a master strategist. Not everybody agrees with that. I think Lincoln learned as he went. I think he got a really good idea of what the overall strategy should be. Maybe not the details, the nuts and bolts of it, but he could see the big picture where his generals could not, or at least early on anyway, could not. And so I'm interested to see what this, what he has to say here. This is a 1952 book, so it's got some age to it, but if you read any history of the Civil War, everyone sources this book, so it's still got to have some firepower to it. Another one that I want to read that I have started and I haven't got very far. This is my March of the Mammoth book. I got to get my chapter read for today, but this is my March of the Mammoths book. It is Common Men in the War for the Common Man, and this is volume 2 or book 2 of a history, the Civil War of the United States of America, history of the 145th Pennsylvania Volunteers after Gettysburg through the war's end. And this is by Dr. Verrill Salmon. He is my uncle. And both books are big old chunky monkeys, and they are very, very interesting. He wrote this entire book based on the letters and diaries and just all the paperwork left behind from the soldiers, and that's what the bulk of this is. You're reading the letters home from the soldiers and the newspaper clippings and all that kind of stuff. And he puts all of these guys that were in that or a good chunk of the guys that were in the 145th Pennsylvania Volunteers, puts it all together to create this story of what the war was like. And I took the first volume. I've read the first volume, and I've actually had this for a few years now, and the size kind of put me off a little bit because I knew it was going to take me forever. But once you get to reading it, it's not bad. You got to get to reading it. You can't let the size intimidate you. It's a really, really good book, and it's a really good look into the mindset of the soldiers. I would highly, highly recommend anybody to go get this. This comes from Ex Libris Publishing. This is a 2022 copy, and it's a phenomenal work of love that my uncle put into this, and it's pretty interesting looking at the everyday accounts of these soldiers. So I'm going to keep working on that. As soon as I upload videos, I'm going to read my second chapter. Let's do a book on Antietam. So this was a fairly new one. It came out, let's see, hang on, because this is an arc. September 2024. So it's been out for less than a year, and it's a day in September, the Battle of Antietam and the world it left behind. And I had this sent to me in the mail. I think this one was from Steve Donahue, I think. It was either him or Peg. One of the two sent this to me, and very pleased to have it. And I'm finally going to get to it. I should have got to it a while back, but it's a fairly short, for a history book of the Civil War. It's 288 pages, so it's not anything that's going to make you not want to read it just because of pure size like that last book. But it comes from W.W. Norton and Company, and like I said, it's a 2024 book. And I don't have the pub sheet on it. Oh, here, I can read from the inside here. Okay, it says, the Battle of Antietam, which took place September 17th, 1862, remains the single bloodiest day in America's history. At a turning point in the Civil War, the narrow Union victory was the key catalyst for Lincoln to issue his Emancipation Proclamation. Yet Antietam was not only a battle that dramatically changed the fortunes and the meaning of the war, it also changed America in ways we feel today. Antietam ushered in a new beginning in politics, military strategy, gender roles, battlefield medicine, war photography, and the values and worldview of the post-war generation. A masterful and fine-grained account of the battle and the intimate experiences of those who were there. Stephen Budiansky, A Day in September, expands this view to encompass Antietam's enduring legacy in American society and culture. So yeah, I'm looking forward to that. I think that's going to be a real good one. I heard good things about it. So that's on the list. This is probably the book that I am looking forward to reading the most out of this entire stack. I've had it for a couple of years, and I have no idea why it got put on the back burner. It's This Republic of Suffering, Death in the American Civil War by Drew Gilpin Faust. And as you can see, there is a PBS episode on American Experience, Death in the Civil War, directed by Rick Burns. And I saw some of that. I haven't seen all of it, but I saw some of that. Absolutely loved it and had to have the book. And so then I went and bought the book, and then it got put on the back burner. Why? I have no idea. But anyway, let me read the back cover to you, and then I'll tell you a little bit more information about it. And just so you know, this was a National Book Award finalist. It was a Bancroft Prize winner, and it was a Pulitzer Prize finalist. More than 600,000 soldiers lost their lives in the American Civil War. An equivalent proportion of today's population would be about 6 million. In this Republic of Suffering, Drew Gilpin Faust reveals the ways that death on such a scale changed not only individual lives, but the life of the nation, describing how the survivors managed on a practical level and how a deeply religious culture struggled to reconcile the unprecedented carnage with its belief in a benevolent God. Throughout, the voices of soldiers and their families, of statesmen, generals, preachers, poets, surgeons, nurses, Northerners, and Southerners come together to give us a vivid understanding of the Civil War's most fundamental and widely shared reality. And, just the death and suffering. I mean, how much more do I need to say on that? You get a lot of people that died in this. It says 600,000 soldiers lost their lives. There's studies that have been done that push that number up to 750,000 when you look at deaths right after the Civil War based on stuff that happened during the Civil War. So you've got a lot of bloodshed. And that's just I always find it fascinating to read about that kind of stuff. All right, so bring you the last book that in this stack of April and May Civil War reads, that Civil War and Slavery reads that I want to get to or try to get to. This one, I don't know if I'll get to it or not. It is Jay Winnick's book, April 1865, The Month That Saved America. And it says as seen on History Channel. So this one's been talked about a little bit, and it is let's see here, Perennial Books, and it is from the year 2001. Yeah, so anyway, 1 month in 1865 witnessed the frenzied fall of Richmond, a daring last-ditch Southern plan for guerrilla warfare, Lee's harrowing retreat, and then Appomattox. It saw Lincoln's assassination just 5 days later in a near-successful plot to decapitate the Union government, followed by chaos and coup fears in the North, collapsed negotiations and continued bloodshed in the South, and finally the start of national reconciliation. So a lot goes into this book. I hear somebody outside. I think I need to go check the door. But so I'm going to wrap this video up. That is my pile of possibilities for April and May, all dealing with stuff with the Civil War and slavery. So hopefully, BookTube, you found some book titles that might interest you there, and I'll try to get back to you and tell you what I think of them. Hopefully it's going to be a good 2 months of reading. So if you're reading some stuff for the Civil War, what are you reading? Let me know in the comments section. And I hope all of your reading's going well, whether it's Civil War or not. And until next time, BookTube, happy reading.